Welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo. I hope you've been enjoying our show today. We've covered a lot of topics. We talked to so many newsmakers. But right now, we want to talk to someone who was part of the big story of the day, which is the publisher of SaharaReporters, Omoyele Sowore. He was there at the encounter with Robert Mugabe, the president of Zimbabwe. So we want to talk to him about that and talk to him about updates on what's going on in Nigeria with the new government. We want to find out if there is any honeymoon, and if there is it over? So, Omoyele Sowore, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you for bringing me, Rudolf.
All right, so let's start with this Mugabe encounter. What do people miss in this story? You were there.
Yeah, I think this is important to understand that when something of this level of innovative and categorical and courageous action is taken, people tend to miss the importance of it and the relevance of it. One of the things that you should know, and I keep saying, is that when Rosa Parks refused to step out of the front of the bus for a white man, there were plenty of black people at the back of the bus who were in a hurry to get home, and were pretty satisfied with the condition. They were shouting on her, I'm sure, saying, look, why don't you just leave the front of the bus for the white man and come back to where you belong so that we can get home? But this is a courageous act, and it has nothing to do with journalism. It has something to do with 35-year long question for the people of Zimbabwe, other Africans who have been asking the question as to when the 91-year-old dictator in Zimbabwe is going to step down. And nobody has had a chance to ask that very direct, that laconic question about when Mugabe leaves office, even though the man has become atrophied. I was the first person to approach him in the car. And one of the things I would say to people is, if Mugabe was me in front of Iron Smith in Abuja, in 1977 or 75, when he was in the bush fighting, he would have shot him and killed him, just to end the misery of Zimbabwe at that time and to give Zimbabwe freedom and independence. But we didn't do that. We told the path of peace and asked those very, very lovely questions that has become the subject of discussion both for today, tomorrow, and until Mugabe does what is right.
Mm-hmm. So now, what pushback, if any, have you been receiving from, say, the government of Zimbabwe or the Nigerian government? Is anybody talking to you or to Sahara TV for that?
No, the Nigerian government has not asked us any question about this. Apparently, Nigeria needs to take a front seat on demanding for good governance on the continent of Africa. It's not only Mugabe that we interviewed, by the way, and we're working to produce some other videos of our questions, Adela's questions to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, who has just won a fraudulent election. We asked questions from the Vice President of Gambia as to when they are going to allow the people of Gambia to become free. So anybody we could find in Abuja on that day who we felt had questions or answers to their democratic conduct, we questioned them appropriately. Mm-hmm. But we're not answerable to the Nigerian government. We're not answerable to the government of Zimbabwe. The government of Zimbabwe had lost its legitimacy on the account of those overstaying in power. Mm-hmm. So what you have a bunch of rabble-rousers in Zimbabwe and propagandists in place of one Professor Moyo. If you would think that a professor, a well-educated person like Moyo will have a simple answer to the question that Andela asked, and it's been 5 days and Moyo cannot answer the question. He's been beating about the bush, as they say, and insulting and accusing us of being activists. We've never denied that. and claiming that we are Boko Haram. No, we're not Boko Haram. The person that is acting like Boko Haram is Mugabe and his people, harassing and intimidating and terrorizing the people of Zimbabwe with an elongated tenure that they don't deserve. The rest of the noise we are hearing is not different from when we hear what we hear from time to time in the course of our work. I remember when I interviewed Benga Obasanjo about his father's third term, there was a lot of pushback. When we did the story on Ekiti and the rigging of the election with General Momo, there was a lot of pushback. What happens most of the time is that when you do something new and people have never heard about and they can't understand, they can't wrap their head around it, their natural response to it is to just start going rabble-rousing. You know, you can see nobody has ever done this to Mugabe before, and we did it in a manner that has never been done before. It was done by, you know, our own little Rosa Parks, Adeola, who stepped up and asked that question. Don't forget that I was the first person to actually get this going by meeting Mugabe at the back of his car before he ran away, and then we waited for him the second time. So this is a historical step that might take history to judge, not for people who are just not understanding exactly the nuances, the importance, and the relevance historically of what has been done by Adeola regarding Mugabe. But it's a 35-year-old question. It's a multi-million-dollar question that was aptly asked, and we are not waiting for answers, but the people of Mugabe and the rest of Africa, to whom Mugabe claims to be the president of the African Union, deserves answer. We're still waiting for those answers. When is Mugabe stepping down?
Now, there are people also who call themselves Pan-Africans, and they think that Mugabe is a hero of African revolutionary era, and that he deserves a pass. What do you say to those people? All right, I think Sowore's Skype is frozen. We will try to reconnect with him and ask him more questions about what happened. Also, he's going to give us updates on Buhari's government, because this is a week into the administration and there are several questions left unanswered. The media appears to be all over the place. Social media, we're wondering if the honeymoon is over. There are outstanding appointments that we haven't had anything about. We want to get into the administration, people who are informed, to find out what is going on, what is delaying all these appointments, and how are they reacting to the opposition, because it appears as if on social media and regular media, the opposition is very active, and there are news items that are coming out there that are not being responded to properly. So we want to ask Sowore, who is still, by the way, still in Nigeria, what's going on, what is he hearing? I understand that he's back. Sowore, welcome back.
Yes.
Okay, so I was asking you about the people who think that Mugabe is an African hero. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, you're asking about Pan-Africans. Nobody is more Pan-African than we are. You know, we're about Africa, but Africa is not some kind of a static continent that has to be ruled by dinosaurs. Africa has a very, very dynamic youth culture. You can imagine in Nigeria, we just got rid of a president that was only in power for 6 years. We couldn't even tolerate him for more than 6 years, and we have had a new president now. You can imagine being born in Zimbabwe and having lived as long as we have lived, and you have never seen a new president in your life. That's very disheartening. And to put, as they say, insult upon injury, to be ruled by a man who doesn't even know where he is. The moment Mugabe was called to the state box in Nigeria, he fell asleep. And I can imagine that he was woken up when it was time to leave. And then they shoved him down to his car. That's where we met him. He was confused when Abdullah first met him, because apparently he had just woken up. No country deserves to be ruled by a 91-year-old man. I don't care whether his constitution says no or yes, but it is not just acceptable to have that kind of democracy that revolves about one man or around one man and his girlfriend or wife and family and cronies. And so that's not new to us. We've seen a lot of that. So those who make those arguments are living in the past. Africa is not going to live according to the dictates of some Pan-African confused as Pan-Africanists who are not able to define where Africa should be in the 21st century. Africa should not be living in the age of, Africa should not be in 1960. This is 2015, and Africa ought to be where other continents and where other countries are in 2015. So, yes, I understand there's a lot of Pan-Africanists, but, being a Pan-Africanist could mean anything and everything and mean nothing. I went to Pan-African Congress in Ghana before we came to the Nigerian election, and I would say that my experience at that place is a topic for a future symposium discussion.
Now let me ask you, because there are some people in Zimbabwe, even people who are living in Zimbabwe, who appear to be not happy about the encounter. How do you explain people who are suffering? I'm not talking about people who are outside the country, Zimbabweans, but people who are inside the country, and still they think that nobody should touch their Mugabe. What's going on there?
Look, Mugabe has done a very good job of brainwashing a lot of people in Zimbabwe. But if what I'm getting in terms of feedback from Zimbabwe and other parts of Africa is correct, nobody in Zimbabwe is happy about a president that's been around, an atrophied president that's been around since, for 35 years. Nobody. There are a bunch of people who do this for money. We had them during the last election in Nigeria. People who said Jonathan was the best thing to happen since peanut butter. And when he left, they just moved to the next job. So there are political jobbers all over the place. There are people who are confused. There are people who are ignorant about what democracy means. And as you know, Mugabe is a very, very intelligent rabble-rouser, and demagogue. He has confused a lot of people by telling them that, he's relocating land to from white to black, which most of us would support. But what is the importance of having land in Zimbabwe if you can't buy cutlass, if you can't buy hoe, you can't even cultivate the land? In fact, most of the people that got land from reallocation and had to turn it over to white people again. So it's a revolving door. We no longer fall for those kind of propaganda, And Professor Moyo wants us to believe that majority of Zimbabweans are in support of Mugabe remaining in power forever. But the question today is that, does Mugabe even know where he is? As we saw in Abuja, where he fell asleep as soon as he got into the state box. I think the man has a problem with sitting down and staying awake. Do you want even Mugabe to manage your family? That's the question.
Now, one last question on this issue. What about the Nigerian media? How is their reaction to this story? It appears as if they are not picking it up or they are not talking about it. What do you get when you talk to people in the media in Nigeria?
The Nigerian media is been caught off guard. The Nigerian media has also become a victim of its own complacency. We were there with the media guys in Nigeria. They didn't do anything about Mugabe. They didn't ask him any questions. So they didn't ask any of the African leaders who have questions to answer any questions. They were just there, just doing what they regularly do. So this is why a lot of them are confused when they see a new kind of vibrant media outlet like ours doing the job that they haven't been able to do for years, right? So they cannot understand it. And in not understanding what we stand for and how we operate, they start to justify. You cannot find anybody who said that the question we asked is illegitimate. In fact, what we see them asking is that we are not professional. If professionalism means that you don't ask real journalistic questions, then to hell with professionals, If professionalism means that we have become plastic and complacent, and in some cases, complicit in the suffering of our African compatriots and brothers and sisters, then to hell with professionalism, But the people who actually brought journalism to Africa, the British, they are praising Adeola. They're writing very interesting articles comparing Adeola with Christian Amanpour and other great journalists around the world. I'm not trying to be a journalist. I've told people several years ago, and now I'm repeating it, that I am not a journalist and I don't aspire to become a journalist. Because journalism has become a very small part of media, right? I'm a media practitioner, and what that tells me is that wherever information is needed, we take it and we help use it to interact with people who need them to empower themselves, to either gain freedom, to fight corruption, and to fight the material impoverization of Africans wherever they might find themselves. That is very clear on our platform, it's very clear on our mission to the world. I mean, you need to see how people are celebrating this, and I'm proud of Adeola once again. But we also have in Nigeria a bunch of people who are castigating Adeola and SaharaReporters because, of course, these are remnants of the President Jonathan regime who can never forgive us that, because they never thought that our little kind of journalism could bring about a regime change that happened in March and April. It has happened. They are just in shock. And their natural reaction is to fight back and push back whenever they see that, whenever they find out that we're still doing what we love doing best. We want to do what we're doing in Nigeria everywhere else. We want to do it in Gambia, we want to do it in Zimbabwe, we want to do it in Ghana, in South Africa, in Egypt, wherever. Our style of journalism, our brand of journalism, and our dynamic nature of practicing, citizen journalism can help liberate people. So be it, and that's where we want to be.
Okay, let's talk about the current government in power. It appears as if the honeymoon is over before it started. What is the situation? Are people turning against Buhari before his first week in power?
Yes. It appears so. People feel like Buhari is too slow. He has not responded to the yearnings and aspirations. I warned during my last interview with you that if the government doesn't hit the ground running, this is going to happen. There's no question about it. And Buhari doesn't seem to understand that Nigerians do not expect for him to be too procedural to the extent that he's paralyzed by the need to put things together. He's run for office 4 different times. This is the 4th time. People expect him to have a template, an agenda to take Nigeria forward as soon as he came. I mean, this is what my feeling was, So Buhari was sworn in on Friday, and I think he went to sleep thinking that his resumption day was Monday. And look, who's in charge on Saturday and Sunday? Nobody. We saw it. So, and people have reacted as they should. I expect more of, serious, grievous reaction towards his governance if it becomes very slow. And I have no doubt that the amount of awareness that was created that brought him to power could actually be his downfall if he continues to toe the path of, complacency and thinking that Nigerian people can be taken for granted, or that you can keep making promises that have not been fulfilled. You've seen a lot of pressure on his declaration of asset. Now today they came out and said, well, we're going to declare the asset as soon as the CCB verifies our asset. Good news, but that wasn't what he told us when he was running for office. They said, as soon as I set this up and send out my form for declaration of assets, you're going to have a copy of it. Now it changed. It's like, then the change was like, well, if you need my assets, you have to use the Freedom of Information Act. Nobody wants to hear that. Now we've reached a middle position. It's agreed that he will release this as soon as the CCB verifies his assets. But how long is that going to take? Well, we'll find out soon. But I have to praise the Nigerian people, especially young people who are on social media, who have stepped to the front lines to keep demanding for action, because we just can't wait. We've seen we've waited for so long, and people actually suffered and endured a lot of insults, a lot of suffering to get him elected. So there's no reason why Buhari, for example, hasn't appointed his cabinet, hasn't appointed his advisors. It just thinks that it seems as everything is taking forever. And he's traveling as much as Jonathan was traveling when he came. He's been to Niger, he's going to South Africa, or he's going to the G7. I think this man should just sit down at home, set up his government, and start fighting on every front. Like I say, just keep everything, keep all the burners firing.
Now there's some headlines I want you to address if they're actually legitimate stories to be discussing. The First Lady Aisha Buhari's watch. Is that something Nigerians should be concerned about, and how is that relevant to the change?
It's legitimate to ask about whatever she's wearing, because Buhari said we're not going to have a First Lady position. So if you have a First Lady that's walking around with an expensive-looking Cartier watch, we should ask questions. What we've heard is that that watch is a replica of the more expensive one. I don't know. We need to know, and they haven't addressed that yet. So yeah, go to your next headline.
The next headline says that the president locked out the vice president from a meeting with the National Security Advisor, Sambo Dasuke. Is that true? I
can't verify that. I don't think that the VP has complained so far. He's been to Sudan to represent the president. He's been to Anambra to commiserate with victims of the gas tanker explosion. It seems to be active. We haven't heard anything to the contrary, but it's not impossible. I'm aware that during the transition period, there were concerns that the vice president was being sidelined. But I cannot tell what is the situation with this particular thing. I don't imagine that the vice president wants to barge into a meeting where there's a security meeting that he was barred from. If it was barred from, it means that he was trying to get into the meeting illegally. That would spell doom for the government if the VP start attending meetings to which he's not invited to. Next headline, please.
Okay. The next one is EFCC going after the former governor of Adamawa. What is going on there? Are they just showing off, or is this a new EFCC?
No, I think EFCC is old and antiquated and atrophied. But it's natural that the guys at the EFCC right now wants to show that that they can do the job, and they want to get retained by Buhari. It's showing off. This PFCC in particular have not done a good job at showing that they can act. So this is all EFCC for sure. Next headline, please.
Kashamu, what's going on with Kashamu? Why is he still, there's a stalemate or what? What's going on?
There's no stalemate. Kashamu and the NDLA and the outgoing government had a deal that they would just put up some show about his abduction or extradition because they don't want the American government ringing in on their parade. So they never plan to arrest Kashamu. If you want to arrest Kashamu, you just need to wait outside his house. While he's on his way to the Senate to be sworn in, you just catch him and do what he has to do. But the question also, there's a lot of questions about the legitimacy of what they're doing. Kashamu is asking legitimate questions. Got a number of lawyers. There's got a lot of judges on his payroll. But all they did was like, it was a show. It was like a movie. They were acting a movie. They were acting out on the script, and I think the script has reached the end. So maybe if now there will be something legitimate, but all of what you saw, unfortunately, wasn't real.
Okay. One last one. The Amnesty International report was accusing the government, the military, of abusing the rights of people, which is not something new. But then the spokesman for the Army, General Lokolade, called the Amnesty International report an attempt to blackmail the Nigerian government. Has blackmail lost its meaning in Nigeria? What is that about?
Lokolade is very lousy, I would say. I met him in Abuja and tried to interview him. He wouldn't want to interview. They did it to us when we were reporting on Boko Haram and saying that they were running away from Boko Haram and abandoning their position. They accused us of supporting Boko Haram. So blackmail has lost its meaning. They are the ones who are engaged in blackmailing organizations that ask these kind of questions. There's no question about the fact that the Nigerian Army has overstepped its bound and abused civil rights in the course of fighting Boko Haram. The same way Boko Haram has done. I think maybe they would have made a better presentation of their condition by saying, look, we found ourselves in a situation where there's nothing we could have done. but there are like enough evidence, as Amnesty International provided, to show that even after they captured people, they abused them consistently and tortured people, and extrajudicially murdered a lot of people. You can't just, you can't ignore those evidence, those type of evidence, and say that people are blackmailing you. That doesn't make sense. But they do a lot of things in Nigeria that don't make sense, Rudolf.
All right. Thank you so much, Sowore, for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and help me say to Lady Adiola not to worry. She's just done her best, and as Fidel Castro would say, history will absolve her.
All right. Thank you so much. We will do that. We have come to the end of our show today. I hope you enjoyed watching our show. Remember, next week, Saturday, at the same time, at 10 a.m. New York time, we'll be back to give you another edition of Saturday's show. On behalf of everybody here and all the guests we talked to, we thank you for watching and hope you will join us again next week.